Today on Locked On Red Wings, woeful goaltending sinks a possible 8-game winning streak as Detroit outplays but falls to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA D1 men's hockey. Scotty, disappointing yet entertaining game on Saturday afternoon against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that's the best way of putting it. We will be talking about that game for the majority of this episode, as well as a short anecdote about Duel in the D at the end, because I went. But first, got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Scotty. Red Wings lose 6-3 at home to the Tampa Bay Lightning in a game that felt like the score does not tell the story at all for how that game went. What was your first thought in this win streak snapping loss?
Yeah, honestly, my first thought at the end of this game was that I am really happy with the performance, especially in periods 2 and 3. Like, obviously, in the end of the third, it kind of got away from them and whatnot, but, they pulled the goalie and whatever. I was very, very pleased with the fact that they were down big early and did not just roll over and die. You know how easy it would have been to just be like, all right, we're on a W7, and this is the last game before 2 weeks off. I'm going to kind of just pack it in. Like, this game's over. We can, regroup, rest up. This game's over, and that's really all there is to it. And they did not do that at all. They brought it back to a 1-goal game at one point there. What was it, late in the second, early in the third? And I was just really happy to see that. And as you mentioned, this also was not like they didn't get caved in. They were the better team, I would say, for a majority of this game. It's just, goaltending, well, I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. Goaltending was really poor for the Wings, and especially, the first goaltender for the Wings was really poor in this game, and it made them it caused the team to be in a hole that they couldn't dig themselves out of. But I was just really pleased of, like, they weren't going to win out, right? They were bound to lose a game, and like, this is why it's so hard to string together wins in hockey, because the games like this happen. You can just be clearly the better team and it not even look like a close game in the other team's favor in the scoreboard or in the scorebook. So like, I know it's disappointing. It's a disappointing result. Obviously, you want to go into that 2-week break with a win. That would have been really awesome to go into a 2-week break with a W8. But at the end of the day, like, I think they were the better team. I think they showed a lot of fight. I think there was a lot of really good performances in this game. And really, I think the biggest thing is my opinion of where this team is at and what this team is doing on a night-to-night basis has not changed whatsoever because of this result, because I think they actually played a pretty good hockey game. So I guess I kind of cheated. That's a lot of thoughts. But my first thought was just that I was really glad that they made this a competitive game, because the first 10 minutes, I don't think too many people would have thought that. And it would have been really easy for the team to just kind of pitch in the last game after winning 7 in a row. Where, like, how many more are you really going to win anyway before a 2-week vacation?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought was this is both frustrating and encouraging at the same time, because
that's a good way to put it.
You won the last 4 games, right? Well, won the last 7, but the last 4 games you won, 3 of them were in extra time. So, like, you were kind of due for it to turn on its head and you have some bad luck go the other way. And this was that game where you just had bad luck. You were the better team by eye test and by all the advanced numbers throughout 60 minutes of this hockey game. But your goaltending was not locked in today. You gave up early. You gave up a couple really good opportunities that they did not fail to capitalize on, and your goaltending couldn't bail you out. and it puts you in a huge hole early, and you can't spot Andrei Vasilevsky 4 goals and expect to be able to score 5, right? So it's really hard to. That's what the frustrating part was, because it was the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? It was the last game before the break, and you win that, you end the day in a divisional spot going into the break, and instead you lost, giving Tampa Bay a little bit of breathing room for third in the Atlantic, and you risk, at the time, you were risking falling out of a playoff spot altogether. Now, thankfully, Scotty, every other game that everyone else that was trailing you in going into that day that could have surpassed you in standings lost as well. Boston blew a lead with a minute left against Vegas. Columbus blew a third period lead to the Rangers. So you're going into the break in a wild card spot, which is fantastic and helps relieve some of that frustration. The encouraging part was the fact that this was the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? And like, I understand, they for the last week they're out of the playoff picture, but they are a playoff team. We talked about it when we previewed the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, they are going to be in the playoffs. You're not a team that has a plus 30 goal differential and not make the playoffs. It just does not happen. So that was a playoff team, and a team that, maybe they're not as good as they were when they were in their Stanley Cup winning form, but is still one of the top teams you're going to have to compete with for a playoff spot, and you outplayed them. It was just a day where you didn't have great goaltending. Last week when they played them, they had the best goaltending ever. Cam Talbot outperformed Vasilevsky. It just happens at times. It sucks that it happened in this game, especially going into the break, but like, it was both frustrating and encouraging for all of those things. And I mean, I think, Scotty, we can say I don't have a second difference maker. I mean, if you want to have different difference makers, we can split the goaltending and each take one. But I mean, the difference maker in this hockey game was just the piss poor goaltending. And I hate to say it, because the goaltending has been really good on this hot streak, right? We've talked about the difference, and Windy Wheel created a whole graphic, and it's gotten super popular, but it's very true. The difference in the 7-game winning streaks and the second 7-game winning streak, you're relying a lot on good goaltending. Well, the last 2 games, goaltending's not been good, and this time you could not overcome it.
Yeah, and we talked about, I have an overarching question I want to ask you at some point, but like to dabble into it a little bit now, like if there is a silver lining for the 2-week break, when we both said on Friday's show that we'd like rather that the Wings were able to just like keep playing because they're playing really good hockey. If there is a silver lining, I think it is that the goaltending gets a break. Like you're talking about Alex Lyon, who has been in net a ton over the last calendar year plus, the last 13, 14 months for the Red Wings. And then Cam Talbot, who is, pushing 40 and has just unbelievably exceeded expectations for this hockey team this year. I think giving both of them a break could go a long way and is going to be really valuable for the team. So yeah, I don't know if it's like burnout. Like I think that's a little overused in sports. So I'm not sure that it's necessarily that per se, but I don't think that the break can hurt at least the goaltending room. I think that that's something that that will probably benefit the organization over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it was not good in this game, obviously, and Lyon got pulled real quick. Really rough outing for him. And while Talbot was able to kind of hold down the fort and get it so that the Wings were back within a goal at one point, obviously that ended up getting away from him as well. Empty netter at 1.2, so not all to him. But it just wasn't a great goalie performance. And as you said, I think you put it best, so we don't have to go too much more in depth on the goaltending of Vasilevsky, but like, you can't spot him 4 and win too many times. So that's I think that's a great point you made, and that's just kind of where the Wings were at. So credit to them for making it a game, given how rough the start was in net. But some things you can't overcome, and that's why it's you don't see too many W8s flying around in the National Hockey League.
Right, and like we've been singing the praises of the goaltending like all season. That they've been the reason the Red Wings have as many wins as they do in a lot of instances, especially pre-McClellan, when the team was not playing well, not scoring a lot of goals. Like, they would steal games. But I don't think it's as much as we can say like this is abnormal for them. We can also say this was still a really bad performance by them. And Alex Lyon, he did not look locked in at all. I mean, that shot from Hagel, he just missed it with his glove. It chipped off his glove, went in, and from that moment, like, you could feel the team like visibly shook from that. and like they lost the faith in Lyon immediately for that game. And then a minute and a half after that, Eric Cernak takes a shot. And this goal is not 100% on Lyon because he was screened, but he did not react at all to the shot. He just was just frozen. And I give McClellan a ton of credit for saying 2 goals, that's it. Like, it wasn't just Alex Lyon's not in it, but it was this team, our team is shook. They don't trust their goalie right now. So I got to change out goalies. Got to go back to Cam Talbot, who notably had a bad performance the night before or the game before against Seattle, and try to let this team get back into it. And of course, Vladimir Tarasenko, we'll talk about it, got his 300th career goal shortly after that, made it 2-1. But then Braden Point, they made it too easy for him. Braden Point froze Talbot, went over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Nick Paul added another one. Next thing you know, it's 4-1. You just couldn't, your goaltending could not get a save. And no, you were not helping out your goaltender in some of these situations. Like the only goal in this period that I was like, that's 100% Lions' fault was the Hagel goal, or the goaltending's fault was the Hagel goal at the very start. There are other mitigating factors on the other 3, but that does not mean the other 3 were good goals to be let in either way. Like Nick Paul's breakaway, you could talk about how it was a defensive breakdown in the neutral zone that led to a breakaway, and that's 100% true. But also, that puck, that shot never left the ice and just went right 5-hole on Talbot. I don't think you're selfish for asking your goalie to make a save in a big-time spot. Like, that's their job, is to bail you out at times, and the goaltending couldn't. The same thing with the Braden Point. You allowed a 2-on-1. You let Braden Point, one of the most lethal goal scorers, that was his 30th goal of the season, get in tight on Cam Talbot. But again, he was in tight. He only had one spot to go with that puck, and he beat him clean glove side. So it's both things can be true at the same time, where your defense let your goaltending down in those situations, but your goaltending couldn't bail you out. And it was 4 goals on 7 shots. And you can't, even though it's the first period and there's a lot of game left, even though the Red Wings did push back, and for a second I thought they might, it's really hard to overcome a 4-1 deficit in the first period.
Correct. Yeah, it is. Immensely.
So we're going to head to a quick break. When we will return, we got to slow down. We will talk about notable performers in this 6-3 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. When the game tips off, the NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. You get a new one now, Scotty.
What was that?
That was the NBA, dude.
That had to be on purpose. That was ridiculous.
I would never do something like that on purpose.
Dude, the NBA.
BA.
Absurd. There is not a single person in the history of humanity who has said NBA like that. That was ridiculous.
Now there is one.
That's unfortunate. That's bad for society.
Well, we had to figure out something new after now the reads changed from the NFL. It's now the NBA. All right, segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, notable performers in this game. Despite the loss, again, the Red Wings played really, really good in this game. And if they had decent goaltending, they would have won, in my opinion. So who stood out to you as a notable performer?
Again, honestly, I think there was kind of a wide range of people to choose from. I'm going to start with Cat. I thought he was everywhere. That's a 3-point night, I believe, for him. Had a lot of shots, had a lot of opportunities. Obviously, the goal in this game. I thought he was kind of everywhere, and we have been talking a lot about his great season. And when we do next week, I mean, peek behind the curtain, we're going to do usually we do it during the All-Star break, but our mid-season, player evaluations. And I have a feeling Cat is going to be an overwhelming success. Is that the right word? A really, really positive review, just because he continues to produce and adds to his team high in goals, and it was a beauty. And like I said, was kind of everywhere, sharing the puck as well. I thought it was a really nice game from him.
Yeah, he has been the best player on the Detroit Red Wings the last few games. Even when the few games where the Red Wings didn't have their best stuff, but they were still winning, DeBrincat was out there, specifically like the second half of that back-to-back last weekend, right? The game against
Yeah.
Vancouver, I think. He scored 2 goals, right? He was phenomenal that entire game. He was flying. He looked great in this game as well. Obviously, he stole a puck for a goal. He had 1,000 other opportunities. That beautiful pass to Patrick Kane on the power play as well. Alex DeBrincat is the player we thought we were getting last season. He contributed in every single goal. The Red Wings scored 3 goals. He had a 3-point night. So Alex DeBrincat, him coming alive and being the top 6 goal scorer, the sniper that we thought he was going to be, but also providing assists and back checking really hard to play well defensively. Is really great to see. I mean, there's only so many good things you can say about Alex DeBrincat. That was his 24th goal in the season. It leads the team. His total last year was 27. He's on pace to break 30 again for the first time since I think he was with the Blackhawks. So this is only good things for Detroit. Only good things that he's doing what we signed him to do. So I love to see that. Definitely notable performer. I do want to shout out, this is going to be an interesting notable performer. But Ben Sherratt had an excellent game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Ben Sherratt, incredible game. That first goal that Vladimir Tarasenko, who I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more in depth here in a little bit, Vladimir Tarasenko had his 300th career goal. That play does not get started without Tarasenko leveling Dylan Duke in a welcome to the NHL moment in the neutral zone, forcing the turnover. They go back in and they score a goal. He was incredible all game long.
Welcome to the NHL moment a little later. But.
Yeah. Well, we might mention that because it was kind of a cool.
I was gonna say he kind of scored his first NHL goal, so I don't know, but yeah.
He had 5 hits in this game. He only played 18 minutes ice time, which is kind of shocking to me, given the fact that he's on the top pair with Moritz Seider. But I thought he had a pretty solid game. He and Seider were the only defensemen on the team who weren't minuses in this game. Not that plus minus is everything, but given the amount of ice time that they play on any given night is pretty impressive. In a game where you lost by 3.
Yeah. 6 total goals and you lost by 3 too. Yeah.
I was really impressed with Ben Sherratt's game, and he had a Corsi for percentage of 63% and expected goals for of 65. But caveat to that, pretty much everyone on the team was over 50% shot attempt share in this game at 5-on-5 because the Red Wings dominated the Lightning. So, and still lost. But
were you the person that tweeted the deserve to win-o-meter for this game?
Yeah, it was 85% Detroit.
Dude, just that is the frustrating part of this game is that you really not to just repeat the name of the meter, but you really should have won. You really should have. So again, goaltending wasn't great in this one. Yeah, I thought Sherratt was good. I mean that top pair in general just continues to be.
Yeah, I mean that goes without saying, right? Seider was excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could really kind of pass it around to a few different people. Is Larkin okay? I mean, I'm assuming he just took a puck to a bad area. So, I'm assuming that that's not a long-term thing. He just got hit in the, but
as far as I'm aware, he is all right.
Yeah.
I did not, I'll own it. I did not watch the post-game media availability for this one. I'm sure they asked about Larkin, but there has not been any hubbub on social media.
The replay, he pretty clearly got hit in the junk. So I'm hoping that he's good. But yeah, really just a continuation of the whole season. I think the top line in general just continues to be an absolute force. And it's really interesting to me how they have changed and kind of rotated one of the winger spots a little bit. Obviously, again, Casper's been playing a lot of wing and has played with the top line plenty lately. And it just doesn't seem to matter. As long as Raymond and Larkin are 2 of the 3, and are on the ice together for a lot of the time. And even Raymond's done a little bit of the shuffle at times, but as long as those 2 guys are on the ice at the same time, it just seems to be an incredible line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the top line is excellent pretty much every single game. I'm trying to think here too. I want to talk about JT Compher, but I think I should do it on the other side of the break because this was his first game back.
Yeah.
So let's go to break and then we'll do it after that. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Lockdown Red Wings. You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. Now you can speed up the hiring process with $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. JT Compher returned, right? We speculated that when we saw that Dominic Shine was getting sent down, that JT Compher was going to be back. And we were, it was pretty obvious. I don't want to give ourselves too much credit, but we were right on how the lines would shake out, right? With the third line playing as well as it was. It felt like Compher would just end up centering the fourth line, bumping Verlander over to the wing where he's played some this season, and that is what happened. How did you feel JT Compher and the fourth line played in this hockey game?
Well, first off, I'm really pro putting him on the fourth line for first game back. Obviously, like you said, we kind of talked about that at the end of last week. I honestly think the fourth line kind of got caved in a little bit. So
that wasn't great.
I don't think that it was a super inspiring performance, but as we have talked about numerous times already, like the goaltending really did no favors in this game. But I don't know. I didn't look at him and go, wow, he doesn't belong on the ice. But like just in general, his line was not very productive in this game. They didn't do a whole lot, and they didn't have the puck much either.
Yeah, they were on the ice as a line. They only spent about 9:52 of 5-on-5 together, and when they were on the ice, they were pretty ineffective, I guess is the right way to put it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he's healthy, and I can chalk some of that up to just like they haven't played a lot together as a line, so they got to build some chemistry. But it was not an inspiring first game back for JT Compher, who's been struggling pretty mightily all season long. Same with Joe Veleno, right? So, 13 days to figure that out. Well, hopefully they can come back a little bit rejuvenated and have a good, I would say, second half of the season, but last third of the season in reality, because the All-Star break happens like 2/3 of the way in the season. Vladimir Tarasenko scored his 300th career goal. We kind of mentioned that earlier. I was really happy that Tarasenko got the tip on that Moritz Seider shot for his 300th career goal, because he is somebody who's actually been playing pretty well lately. Like somebody who's been under scrutiny with us, right? And every Red Wings fan for not scoring. That's something you signed him to do. Pretty much exclusively what you signed him to do is help replace some of the goal scoring lost in the offseason. And he has not been scoring despite these last few games getting a ton of chances and putting himself in good positions to score. He's got like a 7.5 shooting percentage on the season, which is crazy low for him. Only 7 goals, less goals than Andrew Kopp. So, you got to... It felt good when he finally found the back of the net, even if it was on a redirect, and you hope, and we said this when he had that 2-goal game against San Jose the last time the Red Wings lost and snapped a winning streak, that it can be the start of something more, but I don't know, Scotty. I just feel like this is a down year for him. Again, I'm happy that he scored and he's been playing better, but he cannot find the back of the net, and I think that leads into the report we heard from Elliot Friedman, who we'll do a whole episode about, but just kind of to note it, that it did happen. Elliot Friedman reporting that Tarasenko might be on the trade block because the fit hasn't been great here.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect transition. I don't have too much else to add. I feel like we're going to probably go a lot more in depth at some point over the 2-week break we have here and talk about that report, because as the trade deadline gets closer and closer, it's so wild. The Wings went from just like the most obvious sellers ever to like, oh, maybe they'll stand pat and just like see what happens, to now like, as we talked about, a soft buy is probably in order, and that makes it really interesting that there's a report out there that they're willing to trade Tarasenko. Now, obviously, I'd imagine they'd want I struggle to pinpoint what his trade value really would be. Like, Yeah, hasn't had a great year, but we'll talk about that. I don't want to get too much into that now because we'll have a whole episode on that. But yeah, I'm glad he scored in this game. I think you're right. I think he's been noticeably a little bit better over the last couple of weeks, but it might be a little, too little too late. And even with him playing well, he's still, for the most part, a bottom six player on this team.
Yeah, and I will say this, and we can move on. I would not consider trading Tarasenko a sell move.
Yeah,
I'll let the fan base I'll let people speculate on why I think that until we do that episode, which we'll probably do tomorrow. But I would not consider trading Tarasenko a sell move. All right, Scotty, any other notable performers from this hockey game? Patrick Kane scored.
Yeah. And played. He was on third line again, right? So, yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that the 2 weeks can be good to him too. Get him off his legs for a little bit, and hopefully when he comes back, we can kind of reinsert him into the second line there. But I mean, or I don't know, maybe not. maybe he gives you a depth scoring option. He makes the third line a lot more dangerous in terms of what they're able to do in the offensive zone. He's going to play power play 1 anyways, so like maybe you don't need him on the second line. I don't know. We can talk about that at some point over the break as well. But yeah, good to see him get going. And over the last few games, he's looked a lot better than he did, his first game or two back.
So, and I want to bring this up now. This is not game related, but All-Star break or Four Nation break related. There is a possibility. I just want to say this so people don't panic, because I know a lot of times you might see this notification, and you might not see this notification, but you might. If the Red Wings reassign Marco Kasper, Simon Edvinsson, or Elmer Soderblom to the Grand Rapids Griffins for the next 13 days, do not panic. That is a paper move to get them to continue to keep playing. I did notice on the Detroit Red Wings official roster that Marco Kasper and Elmer Soderblom are no longer listed. Same thing with on Puckapedia. There's been no official designation to Grand Rapids. So it could be a mistake. It could be intentional. I'm leaning towards it. They're probably going to reassign them to Grand Rapids for the next 2 weeks to keep them playing. But that does not mean they won't come back. That is just simply because the Red Wings don't play for 13 days, and they are waiver exempt. They do not have to go through waivers. They can just be sent down. Simon Edvinsson can be just sent down too, but he's been with the team since the start of the season. I think for their intents and purposes, they probably just don't consider it a benefit for him to play in Grand Rapids. So when you eventually see a notification that Soderblom and Kasper were sent down, if they are, do not panic. That does not mean they're not coming back up when the season resumes. It's just simply because the Red Wings don't play for 13 days. So I just wanted to get that out there, get ahead of it, because that's something that we might see. I
agree with you. I think Kasper might be somewhat likely. Elmer, I feel like if there is anybody who it's going to happen to, it's going to be him. I would honestly be surprised if Edvinsson was. I know he's waiver exempt, but there comes a point where you are, even if you're waiver exempt, you are too valuable to risk injury of. And
correct.
Like that is, I think, where he falls into at this point. He is literally the second best defenseman on this team. I don't think you're gonna necessarily want to risk injury in an AHL game for your second best defenseman the rest of the season. So I would, I honestly, that he would surprise me at this point, but the other two I think are a little bit more
like a lock, right?
Yeah, Elmer feels like an absolute guarantee if anybody is to have it happen.
Yeah, but again, that does not mean they're not going to be recalled. I mean, Marco Kasper will be recalled. He's been such a valuable asset on that top line. Soderblom, I'm pretty confident will get recalled because you have a spot on the roster and he's been playing really well. But just for the All-Star break, for the Four Nations break. Also, I went to Duel in the D, Scotty, and I just want to do this as an anecdote. Second intermission, a buddy of mine called, and he goes, "So you like hockey, right?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "Well, I got an extra ticket to Duel in the D, so I got to go see." He did tell me the caveat, though, was that if I was going to go with him to see Duel in the D, because he's a Michigan State alum, I had to be a Michigan State fan. For that, I could not root for the Maize and Blue. I said, I don't have a dog in this fight. I went to Oakland University. I'm rooting for Trey Augustine. And it was a great time. It was a fantastic time. That LCA was packed, Scotty. I have never seen
know.
LCA that packed. It was 100% sold out. And when they say sold out, typically that means like, oh, well, the tickets are sold, but all these corporate bigwigs aren't going to fill the seats behind the bench. I have a whole issue with those seats behind the bench. But they was completely sold out, the entire arena, packed to the T, and it was a great atmosphere. Two big rivals playing. And it was a great game. Well, it was a great game if you're a Michigan State fan. It wasn't a great game if you're a Michigan fan. And Trey Augustine was phenomenal. Allowed 1 goal on 25 shots. Made some key big saves in the first period. Isaac Howard, who was a first-round draft pick by the Tampa Bay Lightning, scored and had an assist in this hockey game. He was great as well. And I think the most notable thing, Michigan's 1 goal came via Tyler Duke, who is the brother of Dylan Duke, who scored his first NHL career goal with the Tampa Bay Lightning earlier in that day at LCA. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, no, my roommate and I went to Duel in the D last year at LCA. It was also absolutely packed then. My roommate is like third or fourth generation Sparty, and like all his aunts and uncles. So like he goes hard for the green and white, needless to say. And so we're always, I mean, I've known him since kindergarten. We've always been on opposite sides of that. But that honestly, that's part of the fun. That's what makes it fun. I'm Walmart anyway, so like he gives me a hard time for that. But it's one of those things that I'm super glad it's at LCA every year, because it
was
is
packed.
so awesome. It's the coolest thing. Augustine played last year when I went to, so. And we were going to go this year, and we just weren't able to snag tickets because it was literally sold out. So that is a testament to A, our poor planning, and B, how popular the event is, which is really, really cool. So, really awesome to see that be like a yearly traditional thing. Because him and I also used to go to the GLI every year when they still had that at LCA, right? The Great Lakes Invitational, with the northern schools coming down and playing the tourney, the all weekend tourney. Like we used to go to that every year, and that one was there was few hundred people there. That wasn't nearly as popular, and so for them to kind of rebrand, I'll say it a little bit more, and really just kind of focus on the main rivalry that most people care about down here. Is I think genius, and yeah, clearly it's working, and it's going to be sold out probably every year they have it, which is awesome.
Augustine also had an assist in this hockey game too, by the way.
There you go. Love goalie points.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was sold out. So if you ever want to go to LCA packed with just an incredible atmosphere of two excited fan bases, a Duel in the D, man. You got to get the tickets early though. I was just fortunate that my buddy had an extra. So, anyways, Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow as we start a 2-week break of Red Wings hockey. Yay.
We have the first week planned out. Like we know we're going to talk. We're going to talk Vlad. That's going to be an interesting conversation. We have mid-season reviews. That's always a really interesting conversation that people like. We have obviously the Four Nations. We'll talk about it. It's really the second week where we're going to have to do some digging. Hopefully there's some news that comes out to help us kind of limp to the finish line there. Yeah. But this week will be, there's still a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about here. So
absolutely. All right. Same time, same place. Your team every day.
Every day.